Panic is the most expensive emotion you possess. It costs you money, it costs you relationships, it costs you your dignity, and in the worst moments, it can cost you your life. Right now, you are operating in a world designed to keep you in a state of permanent, low-grade hysteria. The news cycle, the social media algorithms, the demands of your career, and the fragility of the economy are all screaming for your attention at once. They are demanding that you react. They are demanding that you feel afraid. And for the vast majority of your life, you have obeyed. When the pressure mounts, most people do not rise to the occasion. They sink to the level of their training. And the sad truth is, you have not been trained. You have been conditioned to flinch. When uncertainty strikes, your biological default is to freeze, to lash out, or to make impulsive decisions based on a terrifying future that hasn't happened yet. You mistake anxiety for preparation. You mistake worrying for thinking. But there is a different way to live. Look at the people who win at the highest levels. The elite military commanders, the emergency surgeons, the investors who make fortunes while the market collapses. They are not smarter than you. They do not have access to a secret source of information. They simply have control over their own internal dashboard. While everyone else is drowning in the noise, they have learned to silence it. While everyone else is running away, they are stepping forward. They have mastered the art of thinking clearly while everyone else panics. This audiobook is not a collection of comforting platitudes. I am not here to tell you that everything will be okay, or that you should just think positive. In a crisis, positive thinking is delusion. We are not interested in delusion. We are interested in survival. And beyond that, we are interested in dominance. Over the course of the next 10 chapters, we are going to dismantle the biological and psychological mechanisms that trigger your fear response. We are going to rebuild your mental architecture from the ground up. You will learn how to override millions of years of evolutionary programming that screams at you to run when you should stand firm. You will learn the architecture of the sacred pause, the ability to freeze time in a heated argument or a collapsing business deal to find the one move that saves the game. We will strip away the noise until all that is left is the signal. You will learn to make surgical decisions with incomplete information. You will learn to detach from the herd when the herd is running off a cliff. By the end of this audio experience, you will no longer be a leaf blowing in the wind of circumstance. You will be the rock that the wind breaks against. This transformation requires your full attention. Do not listen to this passively while scrolling through your phone. This is a manual for your mind. Treat it with the respect your future self deserves. Before we begin the work, I have a small request. If you are finding value in this channel and you are ready to take control of your mind, please click the like button and subscribe to the premier audiobooks. It helps this message reach others who are drowning in the noise. And if you are truly committed to finishing this journey, I want you to leave a comment below, right now, that says, "I am in control." Claim that statement before we even start. The world is getting louder. The chaos is not going away. In fact, it is likely just beginning. You cannot control the storm, but you can control the ship. It is time to stop reacting and start commanding. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Fog of War. Why do you freeze? Why, when the pressure spikes and the stakes are high, does your mind suddenly go blank? Why do you say the wrong thing, or worse, say nothing at all? Why does a smart, capable person suddenly lose access to their intelligence the moment a crisis begins? You have likely blamed yourself for these moments. You tell yourself you are weak. You tell yourself you lack courage. But this is not a character flaw. It is a design feature. Before we can build a mind that thinks clearly, we must understand the machine that is currently running your life. You are operating on an ancient operating system that was never designed for the modern world. You were trying to run high-frequency trading algorithms on a calculator from the 1950s. The glitch is inevitable. This chapter is about the fog of war. In military terms, the fog of war refers to the uncertainty and situational awareness experienced by participants in military operations. It is the chaos, the lack of information, and the confusion that descends when the first shot is fired. But this fog does not just happen on a battlefield. It happens in your boardroom. It happens in your living room. It happens in the quiet panic of your own bedroom at 3 a.m. To defeat the fog, you must first understand where it comes from. It does not come from the world around you. It comes from the biology within you. The archaic software. Let's strip away the civilized mask you wear and look at the animal underneath. Your brain has a primary directive: survival. It does not care about your happiness. It does not care about your career fulfillment. It does not care about your stock portfolio or your relationship status. It cares exclusively about keeping you breathing for another 24 hours. For millions of years, the threats to your survival were physical and immediate: a predator in the tall grass, a rival tribesman with a rock, a sudden storm. To deal with these threats, nature gifted you the amygdala. This is the oldest, most primitive part of your brain. It is your alarm system. When the amygdala perceives a threat, it hits a panic button that floods your system with cortisol and adrenaline. This chemical cocktail is a miracle drug for physical survival. It shuts down digestion and immune function to conserve energy. It sharpens your vision. It pumps blood to your major muscle groups so you can fight or run. But here is the critical part. It also shuts down the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the CEO of your brain. It handles logic, reasoning, language, and long-term planning. But logic is slow. Reasoning takes time. When a tiger is leaping at your throat, you do not have time to weigh the pros and cons of running away. You need to move. So the amygdala stages a coup. It takes the CEO offline and seizes control of the ship. You literally become stupider so that you can become faster. This system works perfectly in the wild, but you do not live in the wild. You live in a world where the threats are not physical, they are conceptual. A threatening email from your boss, a declining bank account balance, a rumor about layoffs, a difficult conversation with your spouse. These are not saber-toothed tigers. They cannot eat you. But your amygdala does not know the difference. Your brain cannot distinguish between a threat to your ego and a threat to your life. So when you open that email, your heart rate spikes, your palms sweat, your vision narrows. The chemical flood begins. Your logic center, the part of you that needs to draft a calm, intelligent response, is disconnected. You were primed to fight a predator, but you were sitting in an ergonomic office chair. You were filled with aggressive, high-stakes energy with nowhere for it to go. This is the fog of war. It is the gap between the reality of the situation and your biological response to it. You are viewing a modern problem through a prehistoric lens. And as long as you remain in this state, you are functionally insane. You are reacting to a hallucination. The chemistry of stupidity. We need to be very precise about the cost of this reaction. When you are in a state of panic, even low-grade anxiety, your cognitive ability plummets. Research shows that high levels of cortisol acts like static on a radio line. It disrupts synaptic regulation. You literally lose access to your vocabulary, your memory, and your emotional regulation tools. Have you ever been in a heated argument and forgotten a key fact, only to remember it 4 hours later while you were washing the dishes? That wasn't a memory lapse, that was the fog. The information was there, but the bridge to reach it had been burned down by your chemistry. When everyone else is panicking, they are collectively suffering from this drop in IQ. A room full of frightened people is a room full of people operating at 60% of their mental capacity. They are reactive, defensive, and short-sighted. They cannot see the second-order consequences of their decisions because their brains are locked in the now. This is where your opportunity lies. If you can learn to override this biological default, if you can keep your prefrontal cortex online while everyone else is reverting to their lizard brain, you become the smartest person in the room by default. You do not need to be a genius, you just need to be lucid. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. In the land of the panicked, the calm mind is God. Defining the fog. The fog is not just fear, it is a specific type of blindness caused by uncertainty. Human beings hate uncertainty more than they hate bad news. If you know you are going to be fired on Friday, you can plan, you can grieve, you can update your resume. It is painful, but it is concrete. But if there is a rumor you might be fired but you aren't sure, and the boss is acting strange and no one is making eye contact, that is torture. The brain creates the fog to fill the gap of uncertainty. When data is missing, your fear instinct fills in the blanks with the worst-case scenario. This is a survival mechanism. If you hear a rustle in the bushes, it is safer to assume it is a lion and run than to assume it is the wind and get eaten. Evolution rewards pessimism, but in the modern world, this pessimism creates a distorted reality. You are not just dealing with the problem in front of you. You are dealing with the problem plus a catastrophic narrative you have invented around it. The fog is composed of three elements. Exaggeration. Your brain magnifies the severity of the threat. A mistake becomes a failure. A failure becomes a disaster. A disaster becomes the end of your life. Immediacy. Your brain destroys your sense of time. It tells you that you must act now. It screams that if you do not solve this problem in the next 5 minutes, everything is lost. This urgency is almost always a lie. Isolation. Your brain tells you that you are alone. It disconnects you from your resources, your allies, and your past successes. It traps you in a silo of helplessness. When you are deep in the fog, you cannot see the exit. You feel like you were trapped in a burning building, but in reality, you are just standing in a room with the smoke alarm going off. The fire might be real, or it might be a glitch, but you cannot tell the difference because you are too busy screaming. The modern assault. We must acknowledge that the modern world is actively engineering this fog. We live in an attention economy, and nothing grabs attention like fear. The news media understands your biology better than you do. They know that a headline about a stable economy does not get clicks. A headline about a looming collapse gets clicks. A headline about a mysterious new virus gets clicks. They are in the business of stimulating your amygdala. They are weaponizing your survival instinct to sell ad space. Social media amplifies this. You are constantly bombarded with the highlight reels of other people's success and the catastrophic failures of the world at large. You are overstimulated and under-recovered. Most people are walking around with a baseline cortisol level that is dangerously high. They are chronically inflamed, chronically tired, and chronically anxious. Their fight or flight switch is stuck in the on position. This means that when a real crisis actually hits, they have no reserves. They are already redlining. They snap instantly. If you want to think clearly, you must accept that you are living in a hostile environment designed to keep you confused. Clarity is not something that will happen to you naturally. Clarity is an act of rebellion. It is a refusal to consume the poison that is being fed to you. The separation of event and story. To clear the fog, you must learn to separate the event from the story. The event is objective reality. The market dropped 10%. Your partner said, "We need to talk." The client rejected the proposal. These are facts. They are neutral. They have no emotional weight until you assign it to them. The story is what your mind adds to the event. The market dropped 10% becomes, "I am going to go broke and lose my house." "We need to talk" becomes, "They are leaving me and I will die alone." The client rejected the proposal becomes, "I am a failure and I have no future." The fog is the story. The clarity is the event. Most people spend their lives fighting the story. They try to solve the imaginary catastrophe instead of addressing the concrete data point. They waste massive amounts of energy managing emotions that are based on fiction. The first step in military strategy is reconnaissance. You have to know what is actually out there. You cannot fight a battle based on rumors. You need coordinates, you need numbers, you need hard intel. In your life, this means stopping the spiral. It means looking at the terrifying email and reading the words that are actually on the screen, not the words you are projecting onto it. It means looking at your bank account and seeing a number, not a moral judgment of your worth as a human being. The biological override. So how do we fix this? How do we upgrade the software? We cannot remove the amygdala. You need it. If a car swerves into your lane, you want that fear response. You want to react without thinking. The goal is not to become a robot. The goal is to become a commander. We need to build a manual override switch. We need to train your brain to recognize the physical sensation of the fog, the racing heart, the tight chest, the racing thoughts, and interpret it differently. Instead of interpreting that sensation as panic, we are going to retrain you to interpret it as alert. Think of a highly trained Secret Service agent. When a gun goes off, their heart rate spikes, just like yours. Their adrenaline dumps, just like yours, but they do not freeze. They do not run. They move toward the threat with precision. Why? Because they have stress-inoculated their system. They have trained their prefrontal cortex to stay online even when their body is on fire. They have learned that the physiological sensation of fear is just energy. It is fuel. It is a signal that says, pay attention, this matters. You have spent your life treating fear as a stop sign. Every time you feel the fog descend, you pull back, you hide, you distract yourself. This reinforces the neural pathway that says fear equals retreat. We are going to build a new pathway. Fear equals focus. When the fog rolls in, that is your cue to wake up. That is your cue to engage your higher functions. It is not a signal that you are in danger. It is a signal that you are entering high-performance territory. The price of clarity. You must understand that clarity is heavy. It is easier to panic. It is easier to join the herd and scream. When you panic, you abdicate responsibility. You can say, I couldn't help it, I was scared. You become a victim of circumstance. When you think clearly, you accept the burden of the outcome. You are looking reality in the eye with all its brutality and all its ugliness, and you are making a choice. That takes a level of courage that most people simply do not possess, but the reward is total sovereignty. When you can stand in the middle of the fog and see the chessboard while everyone else is swinging at shadows, you become dangerous. You become the person who spots the opportunity disguised as a disaster. You become the person who navigates the ship through the storm while the crew is hiding below deck. The fog is always going to be there. Uncertainty is the only certainty in life. You cannot control the chaos of the world, and you cannot delete the primitive programming of your brain. But you can learn to recognize the glitch. You can learn to feel the chemical wave of panic rising and say, I see you, I know what you are, and I am not listening to you. The first step. As we move through this audiobook, we are going to give you the specific tools to execute this override. We are going to teach you how to pause time. We are going to teach you how to dissect problems. We are going to teach you how to make decisions when you have no idea what the right answer is. But right now, your only job is to acknowledge the fog. The next time you feel that spike of anxiety, the next time the world feels like it is closing in on you, stop. Do not try to fix it. Do not try to fight it. Just observe it. Say to yourself, this is the biology. This is the archaic software. This is the fog. By naming it, you separate yourself from it. You are no longer the panic. You are the witness to the panic. And in that tiny degree of separation, your freedom begins. The fog is inevitable. Getting lost in it is a choice. Chapter 2. The Sacred Pause. What is the most dangerous thing you can do in a crisis? Most people would say the most dangerous thing is to do nothing. They would say that if the ship is sinking, you must bail water. If the market is crashing, you must sell. If you are attacked, you must strike back. We are taught that action is virtuous, and inaction is negligence. We are taught that speed is the ultimate metric of competence. They are wrong. The most dangerous thing you can do in a crisis is to react. Reaction is not action. Action is intentional. Reaction is impulsive. Action is driven by a plan. Reaction is driven by a reflex. When you react, you are not making a choice. You are simply a domino falling because something pushed you. You are surrendering your agency to the external event. If you want to destroy your career, send that angry email the second you finish typing it. If you want to lose your fortune, sell your positions the moment you feel the pit in your stomach. If you want to ruin your marriage, say the first vicious thing that comes into your mind during an argument. Speed kills. In the fog of war, speed without direction is just a faster way to die. This chapter is about the antidote to reactivity. It is about the most underutilized and powerful weapon in your mental arsenal, the sacred pause. The cult of urgency. We live in a culture that fetishizes urgency. We treat ASAP like a commandment. We pride ourselves on being responsive, on being always on having an answer for everything immediately. We have conflated fast with smart. But let's look at the mechanics of urgency. Who benefits when you rush? Scammers rely on urgency. They tell you that your account has been compromised and you must click the link now. They know that if you take 10 seconds to look at the URL, you will see the lie. They need you to act before you think. Manipulators rely on urgency. A high-pressure salesperson tells you the deal expires in an hour. They don't want you to go home and do the math. They don't want you to compare prices. They need to bypass your logic center. When you feel a frantic sense of urgency to make a decision, it is almost always because you are being manipulated, either by another person or by your own insecurity. You feel that if you don't act now, you will lose control. But the paradox is that by acting now, you are losing control. You are letting the timeline dictate your behavior. The sacred pause is the refusal to play by that timeline. It is the ability to stand in the middle of a burning room with people screaming at you to do something and to simply breathe. It is the audacity to say, I am not going to move until I know exactly where I am going. There is a precise moment where your destiny is decided. It is the millisecond after something happens, but before you respond to it. Viktor Frankl, a neurologist and Holocaust survivor, famously theorized that between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Most people have no space. The stimulus hits them, an insult, a problem, a threat, and response fires instantly. They are robots. Input A leads to output B. There is no conscious thought involved. They are slaves to their nervous system. Your job is to widen that gap. You need to take that millisecond, can stretch it into a second, then a minute, then an hour, then a day. This is the sacred pause. It is an act of rebellion against your biology. It is stopping the domino from falling. When you pause, you disconnect the automatic link between the event and your behavior. You buy yourself the most valuable asset in the world, bandwidth. In that silence, you can bring your prefrontal cortex back online. You can assess the damage. You can look at the chessboard. Without the pause, you are gambling. With the pause, you are strategizing. Silence is dominance. Let's apply this to the interpersonal realm. There is immense power in silence. In a negotiation, the person who speaks first usually loses. In an argument, the person who keeps talking is usually the one who is insecure. We talk to fill the void. We talk because silence makes us anxious. We feel that if we are not explaining ourselves, we are losing ground. The opposite is true. Imagine a scenario where a colleague attacks your performance in a meeting. Your instinct is to defend yourself immediately. You want to interrupt, to correct them, to counterattack. You want to prove you are right. Now imagine doing this instead. They finish their attack. You do not flinch. You do not speak. You look them in the eye, completely calm, and you take a slow 4-second breath. You let the silence hang in the room. In that 4 seconds, the dynamic shifts. They were expecting a fight. They were expecting you to get defensive. By doing nothing, you have subverted their expectation. You have shown that their words did not hurt you. You have shown that you are not rattled. You have seized the high ground without saying a word. When you finally speak, your words will land like a hammer because you have created a vacuum for them. The sacred pause signals confidence. It says, I am so in control of myself that I do not need to rush. It unnerves your opponents and calms your allies. It projects the kind of authority that cannot be faked. The physiology of the pause. This is not just a mental trick, it is a physiological necessity. As we discussed in the previous chapter, when the fog descends, your heart rate spikes. When your heart rate goes above 115 beats per minute, your fine motor skills deteriorate. When it goes above 145, your complex motor skills and cognitive processing begin to shut down. You physically cannot think straight when your heart is hammering against your ribs. The sacred pause is how you hack your biology. It is the manual brake for your sympathetic nervous system. When you feel the panic rising, you must physically stop. Do not make the phone call. Do not send the text. Do not agree to the deal. Use a tactical breathing technique. Inhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. Exhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. This is not meditation for the sake of relaxation. This is a biological reset button. You are forcing your body to switch from a sympathetic state, fight or flight, to a parasympathetic state, rest and digest. You are manually lowering your heart rate to get below that 145 BPM threshold so that your brain can actually function. You are not pausing to calm down. You are pausing to reload. Strategic inaction. Once you have mastered the immediate pause, the breath before the response, you must master the macro pause. This is strategic inaction. In a complex crisis, there is a massive pressure to fix it. If revenue is down, launch a new product. If the team is struggling, reorganize the department. If the relationship is rocky, have a big talk. But often, the best move is to do nothing. In medicine, there is a principle called primum non nocere. First, do no harm. Inexperienced doctors often rush to intervene with drugs and surgeries that destabilize the patient further. Expert doctors know when to watch and wait. They know that sometimes the intervention is more dangerous than the disease. In a crisis, the situation is fluid. New information is coming in every hour. The variables are changing. If you commit to a course of action too early, you might be committing to the wrong path. And once you start moving, it is hard to stop. You fall into the sunk cost fallacy, throwing good money after bad, doubling down on a mistake because you moved too fast. Strategic inaction means consciously deciding to wait for better intelligence. It means saying, I do not have enough information to make a winning move, so I will make no move. This is terrifying. It feels like you are sitting on your hands while the world burns. It requires nerves of steel, but it preserves your optionality. As long as you haven't moved, you have options. The moment you act, your options collapse into one reality. Hold your fire until you can see the whites of their eyes. The 24-hour rule. To implement this practically, you need a protocol. You need the 24-hour rule. For any decision that carries significant consequence, a financial purchase, a breakup, a resignation, a confrontation, you institute a mandatory cooling-off period. You draft the email, but you do not send it. You save it to drafts. You sleep on it. You will be shocked at how different the world looks in the morning. The urgency that felt life or death at 10 p.m. usually looks ridiculous at 8 a.m. The anger that felt righteous feels petty. The fear that felt overwhelming feels manageable. During that 24-hour window, your subconscious mind is working. It is processing the data without the emotional noise. It is untangling the knot. If, after 24 hours, you still feel the exact same way and the logic holds up, then you act. But 90% of the time, you will look at that draft and hit delete. You will have saved yourself from a disaster of your own making. Escaping the noise. To truly pause, you often need to physically remove yourself from the source of the stimulus. You cannot think clearly while you are standing in the middle of the riot. If you are in a heated meeting, call a recess, go to the bathroom, go for a walk around the block. If you are fighting with your spouse, say, I need 20 minutes to process this so I can respond fairly. and leave the room. This is not running away. This is tactical retreat. You are removing yourself from the noise so you can find the signal. You need to step out of the current of the river to see which way the water is flowing. If you stay in the water, you just get swept away. The fear of missing out. The biggest enemy of the sacred pause is FOMO. The fear that if you don't act now, the opportunity will vanish. If I don't buy this stock now, I'll miss the rally. If I don't take this job offer today, they'll hire someone else. Let me tell you the truth. Opportunities that require split-second decisions are usually gambling, not investing. Real opportunities, substantial opportunities, have a shelf life. They can withstand a day of due diligence. If someone is pressuring you to sign a contract right now and won't let you read it overnight, that is not an opportunity. That is a trap. Walk away. The fear of missing out drives more bad decisions than incompetence ever will. You are better off missing a good opportunity than taking a fatal one. Regaining agency. Ultimately, the sacred pause is about who is in charge. Are you the master of your mind, or are you a slave to your environment? When you react, you are a slave. The world pushes, you move. The world insults, you get angry. The world scares you, you run. You are a puppet, and the strings are held by everyone else. When you pause, you cut the strings. You stand alone. You decide. This is the foundation of all clear thinking. You cannot think clearly if you are moving at the speed of panic. You cannot reason if you are hyperventilating. You cannot strategize if you are defending. You must stop. It sounds easy, but it is the hardest thing you will ever do. It goes against every instinct you have. It goes against the pressure of your peers. It goes against the culture of the modern world. But look at the masters. Look at the grandmasters in chess. They don't rush their moves. They sit, they stare, they breathe. They let the clock tick. They know that one perfect move is worth 1,000 frantic ones. Chapter 3. The Architect's Eye. You have learned to recognize the fog. You have learned to pause. Now you must learn to see. Most people go through life with their nose pressed against the canvas. They are so close to the details of their own existence that all they see are blurry shapes and chaotic colors. They cannot see the picture. They are trapped in the subjectivity of their own experience. When a crisis hits, this proximity becomes fatal. You are not just observing the problem, you are inside the problem. You are drowning in the water, which makes it impossible to see the shore. You are taking the hits personally. You are asking questions like, why is this happening to me? And what did I do to deserve this? These questions are useless. They are the questions of a victim, not a strategist. To think clearly, you must undergo a radical shift in perspective. You must stop being the resident of your life and start being the architect. The resident feels the cold draft and complains about the temperature. The architect looks at the blueprint and sees the missing insulation. The resident feels the floor shaking and panics. The architect looks at the foundation and calculates the load-bearing stress. The resident feels. The architect analyzes. This chapter is about developing the architect's eye, the ability to detach from your own life so completely that you can view your crisis as a structural problem to be solved rather than a tragedy to be endured. The trap of subjectivity. The greatest barrier to clear thinking is your ego. When you are in the middle of a disaster, a divorce, a bankruptcy, a lawsuit, your ego screams that this is a personal attack. It tells you that the universe has singled you out. It tells you that the actions of others are a judgment on your worth. This subjectivity distorts the data. If a client fires you, the objective fact is, the contract has ended. The subjective story is, I am not good enough and I will never succeed. The objective fact is neutral. It is just physics, cause and effect. The subjective story is heavy. It carries the weight of your insecurities, your past traumas, and your fear of the future. You cannot solve a physics problem if you are crying over the variables. To see clearly, you must kill the me. You have to remove yourself from the center of the equation. You have to look at the situation as if it were happening to someone else. If you were a consultant hired to fix this mess, what would you do? You wouldn't cry. You wouldn't take it personally. You would look at the numbers. You would look at the personnel. You would make the cut. The architect does not have feelings about the building. The architect cares only about the integrity of the structure. The view from above. There is a mental exercise used by the Stoic philosophers and modern military strategists alike. It is called the view from above. When you are trapped in a crisis, your world shrinks. All you can see is the immediate threat. It feels like the entire world is ending because your world is shaking. You need to zoom out. Imagine pulling a camera back from your current position. See yourself sitting in the room. Now pull back further. See the building. See the city. See the country. See the planet spinning in the vast, cold silence of space. From this vantage point, your crisis is invisible. It is a microscopic blip in the timeline of history. Wars have been fought, empires have risen and fallen, plagues have wiped out civilizations, and yet, here you are, worried about an email. This is not about nihilism. It is not about saying nothing matters. It is about resizing the problem. When you zoom out, the monster shrinks. You realize that this moment is not the end of the story. It is just a scene, and it is a small scene. The architect sees the timeline. They know that a cracked window does not mean the house is falling down. They know that a storm does not mean the sun has died. They have the perspective to know that this too shall pass, not as a hope, but as a statistical certainty. Structural analysis versus moral judgment. When things go wrong, the amateur looks for a villain. The professional looks for the flaw in the system. If your business fails, the amateur says, "The market is unfair," or "My partners betrayed me." They are looking for moral justification. They want to be right. The architect looks at the mechanism. The cash flow model was unsustainable, or the incentive structure for the partners was misaligned. Do you see the difference? Moral judgment is emotional glue. It keeps you stuck to the problem. It keeps you angry. Anger is blinding. You cannot fix a machine if you are busy kicking it. Structural analysis is cold. It is indifferent. It treats the problem like a broken engine. The engine is not evil for not starting. It just lacks fuel, or the spark plug is dead. You must train yourself to stop using moral language to describe your problems. Stop using words like fair, betrayed, evil, or unlucky. Start using words like incentives, leverage, friction, and trajectory. When you strip the morality out of the crisis, you strip the power out of the fear. It just becomes a puzzle, and puzzles can be solved. The third-person hack. There is a psychological phenomenon known as Solomon's paradox. Research shows that people are much better at giving wise advice to others than they are at solving their own problems. We have clarity for our friends, but blindness for ourselves. Why? Because when we look at a friend's problem, we are detached. We are the architect. When we look at our own, we are the resident. You can hack this. You can trick your brain into accessing that wisdom by speaking to yourself in the third person. In the heat of the moment, do not ask, "What should I do?" Ask, "What should your name do?" It sounds simple, almost childish, but the psychological shift is profound. By using your own name, you force your brain to process the situation as if it were an external narrative. You create a linguistic distance between the I, the ego, and the actor, the person who must take action. John is feeling panic right now. John's business is losing money. What is the best move for John to make? Suddenly, the emotion dampens, the logic kicks in. You can advise yourself with the same ruthless clarity you would give to a stranger. You become your own consultant. Decoding human behavior. The architect's eye is most critical when dealing with people. People are the most volatile variable in any crisis. They lie, they hide, they act irrationally. If you take their behavior personally, you will lose your mind. You will get sucked into their drama. The architect views people not as friends or enemies, but as actors driven by incentives and programming. When someone screams at you, do not see a person attacking you. See a biological system in distress. See their amygdala firing. See their insecurity projecting onto you. See the script they are reading from. Ask yourself, what is the structural reason for this behavior? Maybe they are afraid of losing their status. Maybe they are financially leveraged and terrified. Maybe they are repeating a trauma response from their childhood. You don't have to sympathize with them, you don't have to like them, but you have to understand the mechanics of why they are doing what they are doing. When you see the mechanics, you stop reacting to the insults. You realize it has nothing to do with you. You are just the screen they are projecting their movie onto. This allows you to manipulate the situation. If you know why the machine is overheating, you know which lever to pull to cool it down. If you just scream back at the machine, you both explode. The blueprint of disaster. Every disaster has a structure. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has pivot points. It has structural weaknesses. The architect looks for the load-bearing walls. In a negotiation, what is the one thing the other side absolutely cannot walk away without? That is a load-bearing wall. Everything else is decoration. In a failing project, what is the single bottleneck that is choking the output? That is the structural flaw. Most people waste their energy painting the walls while the roof is caving in. They focus on the trivial details, the tone of an email, the minor inconvenience, because the big problem is too scary to look at. The architect ignores the paint. They go straight to the beams. You must identify the critical path. What are the 2 or 3 variables that actually determine the outcome? Ignore everything else. If you are going through a lawsuit, the critical path is the evidence and the law. It is not your reputation. It is not your feelings. It is not what the neighbors think. It is the evidence. Focus 100% of your energy there. If you are facing a health crisis, the critical path is the treatment protocol and your physical recovery. It is not your fear of death. It is the biology. Accepting the wreckage. Sometimes the building cannot be saved. The architect knows when a structure is condemned. The resident will stay in a burning house because it's my home. They will cling to the past. They will try to save the furniture while the ceiling collapses. The architect looks at the damage and says, demolish it. This is the ultimate test of detachment. Can you look at something you built, a business, a relationship, a career, and recognize that it is structurally unsound? Can you walk away from the wreckage without looking back? To the resident, this is a tragedy. To the architect, it is site clearance. It is the necessary step before the next build. You cannot build a skyscraper on a cracked foundation. Sometimes the most clear-headed thing you can do is to let the old life burn down so you can design the new one. Practicing the gaze. How do you practice this in daily life? You start with the small things. When you are stuck in traffic, observe your irritation. Don't be irritated. Watch the irritation. Say, the organism is feeling impatience. Look at the cars. See them as a flow of fluids through a pipe. See the constriction point. Understand the system. When the waiter gets your order wrong, do not get annoyed. Observe the system. The kitchen is overwhelmed. The communication line broke. It is a mechanical failure. Practice detaching from the micro frustrations. Build the muscle of observation. Then, when the big hit comes, when the fog of war descends, you will not fall into the trap of why me. You will step back. You will pull out the blueprints. You will look at the ribble with a cold, discerning eye, and you will ask the only question that matters: what can be built from this? Chapter 4. The Noise and the Signal. Imagine you are a pilot flying a plane through a violent storm at night. The turbulence is shaking the fuselage. Lightning is flashing around the cockpit, blinding you every few seconds. Alarms are blaring, terrain warnings, altitude alerts, engine notifications. The radio is screaming with the voices of other panicked pilots and air traffic controllers, shouting instructions that contradict each other. In that cockpit, 99% of what you hear and see is designed to kill you. Not because the plane is broken, but because the sensory overload is designed to break you. If you listen to the alarms, you will freeze. If you look at the lightning, you will be blinded. If you try to process every voice on the radio, you will lose your mind. To survive, the pilot must do one thing: ignorance. Selective, strategic ignorance. They must tune out the lightning. They must silence the non-critical alarms. They must mute the radio static. They must lock their eyes on a single instrument, the artificial horizon. That one small dial tells them if they are level or if they are banking into the ground. That dial is the signal. Everything else is noise. In your life, right now, the alarms are ringing. The news is screaming about the economy. Your social media feed is screaming about politics. Your friends are gossiping about rumors. Your own brain is screaming about what-if scenarios. You are drowning in data, but you are starving for truth. This chapter is about the art of filtration. To think clearly, you do not need more information. You need less. You need to learn the ruthless skill of silencing the 99% so you can bet your life on the 1%. The information fallacy. We have been raised on a lie. We were taught that knowledge is power. We were taught that the more information we have, the better decisions we make. In the age of the internet, this is no longer true. Information is not power. It is a commodity. It is cheap, abundant, and mostly toxic. Clarity is power. And clarity is the result of subtraction, not addition. When a crisis hits, your instinct is to consume. You refresh the news page every 5 minutes. You scroll through Twitter to see what the experts are saying. You ask 10 different people for their opinion. You think you are gathering intelligence. You are not. You are gathering noise. Most information in a crisis is garbage. It is speculation. It is emotional projection. It is outdated by the time you read it. It is designed to keep you clicking, not to keep you safe. When you consume this garbage, you clog your processing power. You experience analysis paralysis. You have so many variables spinning in your head that you cannot move. You are like a computer with too many tabs open. The fan is whirring, the heat is rising, but the screen is frozen. To regain control, you must close the tabs. You must accept that knowing everything is impossible, and knowing most things is useless. You only need to know the right things. Defining the noise. How do you tell the difference? How do you distinguish between a warning you need to hear and a distraction you need to ignore? We define noise by 3 characteristics. First, noise is emotional. If a piece of information makes you feel high-intensity emotion, fear, rage, or euphoria, it is likely noise. Reality is usually boring. Facts are cold. The market is down 200 points is a fact. The market is crashing and we are all doomed is noise. Adjectives are noise. Adverbs are noise. The raw data is the only thing that matters. Second, noise is predictive. Anyone telling you what is going to happen is generating noise. No one knows the future. Economists, political pundits, weather forecasters, they are all guessing based on models. Models break in a crisis. If you are making decisions based on someone else's prediction of the future, you are building a house on quicksand. Focus on what is happening now, not what might happen next week. Third, noise is uncontrollable. If you receive information that you cannot act upon, it is noise. It doesn't matter if it's true. If an asteroid is passing the Earth but there is absolutely nothing you can do about it, dwelling on it is a waste of bandwidth. It is a distraction from the things you can control. Defining the signal. The signal is the opposite. It is rare. It is quiet. It is actionable. The signal is empirical. It is what you can verify with your own eyes. It is the bank balance in front of you. It is the signed contract. It is the doctor's report. It is the ground truth. The signal is current. It deals with the immediate reality of the present moment. It asks, where are we right now? The signal is leverageable. It is information that changes your behavior. If knowing X causes you to do Y, then X is a signal. Think of a surgeon in the emergency room. The patient is bleeding. The family is screaming in the waiting room. Noise. The news on the TV in the corner is blaring. Noise. The nurse is panicking. Noise. The surgeon looks at the heart monitor. Beep, beep, beep. That is the signal. The blood pressure. That is the signal. The location of the wound. That is the signal. Everything else is muted. If the surgeon listens to the family, the patient dies. If the surgeon watches the news, the patient dies. The surgeon must become deaf to the world to save the life. The diet of the mind. You must go on an information diet. When the fog of war descends, your first move should be to cut the lines of communication. This sounds counterintuitive. You want to stay connected, but connection is contamination. Stop watching the news. I mean this literally. Stop. The news is a business model built on selling your attention to advertisers by triggering your anxiety. There is zero utility in watching a 24-hour cycle of speculation. If something truly important happens, if the city is evacuating or the war has started, you will hear about it. You do not need to hunt for it. Curate your sources. Choose 1 or 2 trusted channels for raw data. Maybe it's a specific government website, a specific financial report, or a single mentor who has survived similar crises. Ignore everyone else. This is operational silence. When you cut the noise, you will feel withdrawal. You are addicted to the dopamine hit of the update. You will feel anxious that you are missing out. You will feel irresponsible. Resist that feeling. In the silence, your own intuition can finally speak. In the silence, the signal becomes loud. The so what test. To filter incoming intelligence, you need a razor, a tool to slice the fat from the meat. Use the so what test. For every piece of information that crosses your desk or your mind, ask, so what? The competitor just launched a new product. So what? Well, it might take our market share. So what? So we might lose revenue. So what? Does this change our plan for today? No, our product launch is still 3 weeks away. Then it is noise. Ignore it. The client is angry. So what? They might fire us. So what? We need to fix the error. Does this change our plan for today? Yes, I need to call them immediately. Then it is signal. Act. If the information does not change your immediate actions, it is irrelevant. File it away and forget it. Most things that feel urgent are just interesting. You cannot afford interesting. You can only afford actionable. The one variable rule. In any complex system, there is usually only one variable that actually determines the outcome. The Pareto principle states that 80% of results come from 20% of causes. In a crisis, it is more like 99% and 1%. There is one lead domino. If you knock that domino over, the rest fall. If you miss that domino, nothing else matters. If your business is out of cash, the lead domino is sales. It is not branding. It is not culture. It is not the color of the website. It is getting money in the door. Every conversation that is not about sales is noise. If your marriage is failing, the lead domino might be trust. It is not about who does the dishes or who picked the movie. It is about reestablishing the core bond. Every argument about the dishes is noise. The amateur tries to fix everything at once. They run around putting out small fires while the house burns down. The master finds the gas line and shuts it off. You must identify your one variable. Ask yourself, if I fix this one thing, does everything else become easier or unnecessary? Once you find it, obsess over it. Direct all your resources to it. Be rude to everything else. The internal heckler. The loudest noise often comes from inside the house. Your own internal monologue is a generator of static. It produces doubt. You can't handle this. Regret. You should have prepared better. And catastrophe. This is the end. You must treat your own thoughts with the same skepticism you treat the news. Just because you think it doesn't mean it's true. Just because you feel it doesn't mean it's reality. Imagine your internal monologue is a heckler in the audience of your life. He is drunk, he is loud, he is trying to throw you off your game. You are the performer on stage. You have the microphone. You can stop the show and argue with the heckler, which ruins the show, or you can ignore him and keep performing. The signal is the performance. The signal is the task at hand. The doubt is just the drunk guy in the back row. Let him shout. You have work to do. The counsel of clarity. Sometimes you cannot find the signal alone. Your own bias is too strong. This is why you need a counsel of clarity. This is not a group of friends who will comfort you. Friends give you noise. They validate your feelings. You need a red team. You need people who are not emotionally invested in your outcome, who can look at your data cold. Find one person who is smarter than you or colder than you. Present them with the facts, only the facts. Ask them, what do I not see? What is the signal here? They will often spot the leverage point in 10 seconds because they are not blinded by the glare of the lightning. They are not in the cockpit. They are in the control tower. Listen to them. The discipline of the blinders. Racehorses wear blinders for a reason. They have peripheral vision. If they see the other horses to their left and right, they get distracted, they break stride, they panic. The blinders force them to look forward. They restrict their view to the only thing that matters, the finish line. You need to put your blinders on. This is aggressive. It means telling people, I do not want to hear about that right now. It means deleting apps from your phone. It means unfollowing accounts. It means saying no to meetings that do not address the one variable. People will think you are being aloof. They will think you are burying your head in the sand. Let them think that. While they are running in circles, analyzing every rumor and reacting to every tweet, you are moving in a straight line. The velocity of truth. When you strip away the noise, something incredible happens. You gain speed. Noise creates friction. It slows down decision-making. It creates doubt. When you are operating on pure signal, you can move with terrifying velocity. You see the gap in the market? You take it. You see the flaw in the relationship? You address it. You see the risk in the portfolio? You cut it. There is no hesitation because there is no confusion. Confusion is a symptom of too much input. Certainty is a symptom of the right input. Chapter 5. Surgical Decision-Making. You have paused. You have detached. You have filtered the noise. You see the signal. Now you are standing over the patient. The patient is your business, your career, your life. The patient is bleeding out. You have the scalpel in your hand. You know where the incision needs to be made, but your hand is shaking. Why? Because you are afraid of killing the patient. You are afraid that if you cut, you might be wrong. You are waiting for certainty. You are waiting for someone to tap you on the shoulder and tell you that everything is going to be okay. That tap is never coming. Analysis is safe. Observation is safe, but decision-making is dangerous. To decide is to cut. The word decide comes from the Latin root decidere, which literally means to cut off. When you make a decision, you are cutting off all other possibilities. You are killing the alternative futures where you didn't take this risk. This terrifies the average mind. The average mind wants to keep all options open. It wants to have its cake and eat it too. In a crisis, this desire for optionality is fatal. This chapter is about the incision. It is about moving from the realm of thought to the realm of irreversible action. We're going to teach you how to think like a trauma surgeon, how to operate with incomplete information, how to weigh the odds, and how to make the cut without hesitation. The myth of 100%. The greatest enemy of surgical decision-making is the desire for 100% information. In school, you were taught that if you studied hard enough, you could get the right answer. In the real world, specifically in the world of high-stakes chaos, there is no right answer. There are only probabilities. If you wait until you are 100% sure, you are already too late. By the time the picture is perfectly clear, the opportunity has passed, or the damage is already done. Colin Powell, the former U.S. Secretary of State and four-star general, operated by the 40-70 rule. He believed that if you have less than 40% of the information, you're guessing. But if you wait until you have more than 70% of the information, you have waited too long. The sweet spot is between 40% and 70%. This means you must become comfortable with the gap. You must become comfortable acting when you still have a 30% blind spot. This feels reckless to the civilian mind. The civilian mind says, "What if I'm wrong?" The surgical mind says, "I might be wrong, but waiting is a guaranteed loss." You are not looking for the perfect decision. You are looking for the best available decision based on the current intelligence. Thinking in bets. To operate in this gap, you must stop thinking in terms of right versus wrong and start thinking in terms of odds and stakes. Life is not chess. In chess, all the pieces are visible. There is no luck, only logic. Life is poker. In poker, you cannot see the other player's cards. You have to bet based on the strength of your hand and the behavior of your opponent. A professional poker player does not cry when they lose a hand. They analyze the bet. If they had a 90% chance of winning and they lost, they don't say, "I made a mistake." They say, "I made the right decision, but the 10% outcome happened." This distinction is critical. You can make a terrible decision and get a lucky result. That does not make you a genius, it makes you lucky. You can make a perfect decision and get a bad result. That does not make you a fool, it makes you a victim of variance. In the fog of war, you must focus on the process of the decision, not the outcome. Ask yourself, given what I know right now, what is the highest probability move? If sticking with your current job has a 90% chance of leading to burnout and a 10% chance of getting better, and quitting has a 50% chance of success and a 50% chance of struggle, the math is clear. You take the bet on the 50%. You are an investor. You are allocating your limited resources, time, money, energy, into the vehicle with the best expected value. Once you place the bet, you accept the risk. You don't agonize over the uncertainty, you accepted it the moment you put your chips in the pot. Type 1 versus Type 2 decisions. Not all incisions are the same. Some leave a scar, some are fatal. Jeff Bezos famously categorized decisions into two types. You must learn to identify them instantly. Type 1 decisions are irreversible. They are one-way doors. If you walk through, you cannot come back. Quitting your job without a backup plan, selling your company, filing a lawsuit. These decisions carry weight. They require the scalpel. They require the pause, the analysis, the deep breath. Type 2 decisions are reversible. They are two-way doors. If you walk through and you don't like what you see, you can turn around and walk back out. Launching a marketing campaign? Hiring a freelancer? Trying a new workout routine? Having a difficult conversation? The problem is that most people treat Type 2 decisions like Type 1 decisions. They agonize for weeks over a decision that could be reversed in 10 minutes. They treat a $500 mistake like a death sentence. This is inefficiency. This is fear masquerading as prudence. If a decision is reversible, make it fast. Do not hold a committee meeting. Do not lose sleep. Just try it. If it fails, fix it. The cost of the mistake is lower than the cost of the delay. If the decision is irreversible, slow down, verify your intel, consult your counsel of clarity. But once the 70% threshold is reached, cut. The knife of simplification.
Complexity is the refuge of the coward. When people don't want to make a hard decision, they make the problem complex. They create spreadsheets, they ask for more data, they add conditions. We'll launch the product if the market conditions are perfect and the team is ready and the moon aligns with Mars. This complexity is a stalling tactic. The surgical mind uses the knife to simplify. You must boil the decision down to a binary choice: yes or no, go or stop, cut or keep. Should I fire this employee? Complexity. Well, they are trying hard and they have a family, and maybe if we retrain them. Simplicity. Are they meeting the standard required for us to survive? No. Then they must go. Should I leave my relationship? Complexity. We have history and I don't want to be alone, and maybe they will change. Simplicity. Is this person enhancing my life or draining it? Draining. Then I must leave.
It feels cruel to be this reductive. It is not cruel, it is necessary. Nuance is for the classroom. Binaries are for the battlefield. When you force a binary choice, you strip away the excuses. You force yourself to look at the ugly truth. Amputating the limb. Sometimes the decision you have to make is to lose. This is the hardest cut of all. It is the decision to cut your losses, to admit defeat on a specific front to save the war. Human beings suffer from the sunk cost fallacy. We believe that because we have invested time, money, or emotion into something, we must continue to support it. We throw good money after bad. We stay in dead-end careers because we spent 4 years in college studying for them. We stay in toxic relationships because we've already put in 5 years. The surgeon knows that if the limb is gangrenous, it must be removed. If you try to save the limb, the infection spreads to the heart and the patient dies. You must look at your life with a cold, clinical eye. What is the gangrenous limb? Is it a project that is bleeding cash? Is it a friendship that is toxic? Is it a habit that is destroying your health? You are trying to save it because you're attached to it. You are attached to the history, but the infection doesn't care about history. The decision to amputate is painful. It leaves a scar. You will limp for a while, but you will live. The moment you make the cut, you will feel a phantom pain, but you will also feel an immense rush of relief. The energy you were using to prop up the corpse is suddenly released. You can use that energy to heal. The strategy of the bad option. Often you're stuck because you're choosing between a bad option and a worse option. You're waiting for a good option to appear. You're waiting for the magic third door where nobody gets hurt and you get everything you want. In a crisis, the good option usually doesn't exist. The choice is between lose 20% of your net worth or lose 100% of your net worth. The choice is between have a painful breakup or live in misery for 10 years. The amateur freezes because they refuse to pick the bad option. They think that by not choosing, they can avoid the pain. But remember, refusing to choose is a choice, and usually it is the choice that leads to the worst option. If you don't choose to lose the 20%, the market will eventually take the 100%. You must have the stomach to choose the least bad outcome. You must walk into the pain voluntarily. This is what courage looks like. It isn't charging into battle with a smile. It is looking at 2 terrible paths, calculating which one has less mud, and walking down it with your head high. Post-incision protocol. Once the cut is made, the time for thinking is over. This is where most people fail. They make the decision, but then they look back. They second guess. Did I do the right thing? Maybe I should have waited. This is lethal. Once the decision is executed, you must shift modes immediately from deliberation to execution. You are no longer the judge, you are the executioner. You must commit 100% of your energy to making the decision work. If you decide to launch the business, you cannot do it halfway. You have to go all in. If you decide to leave the partner, you cannot text them at 2 a.m. You have to seal the wound. Doubt during the execution phase ensures failure. Even a mediocre decision, executed with ferocity and total commitment, will often beat a perfect decision executed with hesitation. Burn the boats.
Remove the option to retreat. Tell your brain, we are doing this. There is no plan B. Make it work. The speed of trust. Speed itself is a weapon. When you make decisions quickly and firmly, you signal leadership. People rally around clarity. They are looking for someone who knows where they are going. If you wobble, your team wobbles. If you hesitate, your family panics. But when you say, this is the situation, this is the plan, we are moving now, you create a reality distortion field. You create momentum. The universe has a way of getting out of the way of people who know where they are going. The obstacles seem to melt when hit with sufficient velocity. The final exam. Every day you are presented with small incisions. What time to wake up, what to eat, which email to answer. Practice on the small things. Stop looking at the menu for 20 minutes. Pick something. Stop scrolling through Netflix for an hour. Pick a movie. Train your brain to see a fork in the road and take a path. Then, when the monster comes, when the six-figure deal is on the table, when the diagnosis comes in, when the crisis breaks, you will not freeze. You will feel the fear. You will see the fog, but your hand will be steady. You will look at the patient, you will check the odds, you will take a breath, and you will cut. Chapter 6. Escaping the Stampede. The most dangerous place to be in a disaster is not near the fire. It is not near the shooter. It is in the middle of the crowd trying to escape them. In a stampede, people do not die from the threat they are running from. They die from being crushed by the bodies of their neighbors. They die because the collective organism, the herd, has lost its mind. The collective IQ drops to zero. The collective instinct becomes a blind, thrashing force that destroys everything in its path. To survive the stampede, you cannot run with it. You have to step out of it. But this is the hardest thing a human being can do. Deep in your DNA, there is a code written in blood. It says, safety is in numbers. To be alone is to die. For thousands of years, this was true. If you were separated from the tribe, you starved or you were eaten. Evolution bred out the loners. It rewarded the conformists. So when the market crashes, your biology screams, sell, because everyone else is selling. When a political panic sweeps the nation, your biology screams, be afraid, because everyone else is afraid. When your company starts laying people off, your biology screams, hide, because everyone else is hiding. You are programmed to mimic the panic of the person standing next to you. But to think clearly, you must override this programming. You must become a traitor to your biology. You must learn to stand still while the world rushes past you. You must learn to look at the cliff everyone is running toward and say no. This chapter is about escaping the stampede. It is about the immense social pressure to conform to chaos and the cold, solitary discipline required to resist it. The contagion of fear panic is not just a feeling, it is a contagion. It is an airborne virus that infects the mind through sight and sound. Neuroscience calls this emotional contagion. You have mirror neurons in your brain designed to replicate the emotional state of the people around you. If you walk into a room where everyone is laughing, you will smile. If you walk into a room where everyone is weeping, you will feel heavy. If you walk into a room where everyone is terrified, your amygdala will light up before you even know what the threat is. This is why the stampede is so deadly. You are not just fighting your own fear, you are fighting the aggregated fear of 1,000 people. You are absorbing their cortisol. You are vibrating at their frequency. In the modern world, this contagion is digital. It travels at the speed of light. A rumor starts on Twitter. It jumps to Facebook. It hits the cable news. Suddenly, millions of people are in a state of high alert over a threat that might not even exist. The stampede is global. To escape, you must first recognize that the fear you feel might not be yours. Ask yourself, is this my fear based on my data, or is this the herd's fear vibrating in my bones? If you cannot point to the specific evidence that threatens you personally, you are infected. You are carrying someone else's virus. You need to quarantine your mind immediately. The madness of crowds. History is a long list of examples of the majority being dead wrong. The majority thought the earth was flat. The majority thought the internet was a fad. The majority bought tulip bulbs for the price of houses in the 1600s. The majority bought subprime mortgages in 2007. The herd is almost always wrong at the extremes. They are wrong at the top, euphoria, and they are wrong at the bottom, panic. When the herd is unanimous, it is usually because they have stopped thinking and started believing. They have traded facts for a narrative. They are in a trance. If you find yourself agreeing with the majority of people during a crisis, you should be terrified. It means you are not looking at the data, you are looking at the other cows. There is a simple rule in investing that applies to life. The crowd is right in the middle of the trend, but wrong at both ends. When everyone agrees that real estate never goes down, the crash is imminent. When everyone agrees that the world is ending, the recovery is beginning. To think clearly, you must become a contrarian. A contrarian is not someone who disagrees just to be difficult. A contrarian is someone who bets against the emotional excess of the crowd. When the crowd is greedy, you must be fearful. When the crowd is fearful, you must be greedy. This requires an iron stomach. It feels physically unsafe to buy when everyone is selling. It feels arrogant to stay calm when everyone is screaming. You will be mocked. You will be called crazy. You will be called insensitive. Wear those insults like armor. They are proof that you have escaped the stampede. The price of sovereignty. Let's be honest about the cost. The cost of clarity is isolation. The herd bonds over shared emotion. In a crisis, people want validation. They want to huddle together and say, "Isn't this terrible? Aren't we victims? Isn't it hopeless?" They are building a community of despair. When you refuse to join that community, you threaten them. If you stand in the office while everyone is gossiping about layoffs and say, "I'm going to get back to work. I can't control who gets fired, but I can control my output," you have just made yourself an outsider. You have signaled that you do not need their validation. You have signaled that you are playing a different game. They will resent you for this. They will call you cold. They will say you don't care. Let them. You are not there to be their friend. You are there to be the leader. And the leader is never part of the crowd. The shepherd does not run with the sheep. The shepherd stands on the hill and watches. You must be willing to walk alone. You must be willing to eat lunch alone. You must be willing to be the only person in your family who isn't freaking out. This loneliness is not a defect. It is a prerequisite for command. You cannot lead people out of the burning building if you are huddled in the corner with them, crying. Someone has to stand by the door and point the way. That person must be detached from the panic. Tactical disconnection. How do you physically break the link? When the stampede starts, the first thing you do is stop moving. Literally, stop. If everyone is running down the hallway, step into a doorway and stand still. If everyone is shouting in a meeting, stop talking and lean back in your chair. By physically stopping your momentum, you send a signal to your brain, "We are not running." You break the feedback loop. Next, change your environment. If you are in a WhatsApp group that is blowing up with rumors, mute it, archive it, do not look at it. If you are in a room with frantic people, leave the room. Go outside. Look at the sky. The sky is a great reset. It is big. It is old. It doesn't care about your stock price or your political crisis. It reminds you that the universe is vast and stable, even if your little corner of it is on fire. You need to find a sanctuary of silence. This could be your car, a park bench, or a bathroom stall. You need a place where the signal of the herd cannot reach you. In that silence, you recalibrate. You check your own instruments. Am I in danger? What is the actual threat? What is my next move? You cannot answer those questions while you are being jostled by the crowd. The black sheep advantage. We use the term black sheep as an insult. It implies you are flawed, unwanted, different. In a crisis, the black sheep is the only one with a chance. The white sheep are all identical. They move as one. If the lead sheep runs off a cliff, the white sheep follow because their only programming is follow white sheep. The black sheep is already different. It is already used to being on the periphery. It is used to suspicious looks. It has developed independence because it had no choice. When the cliff approaches, the black sheep doesn't follow. It thinks, "I've never fit in with you idiots anyway. Why would I follow you to your death?" Embrace your weirdness. Embrace your disagreement. If you have always felt like an outsider, like you didn't quite fit into the normal world, celebrate that. That alienation is your superpower now. It means your survival instinct is not tied to social approval. While the popular kids are paralyzing each other with groupthink, you are free to improvise. You are free to survive. The echo chamber of doom. Be very careful who you listen to right now. In a stampede, people shout things that aren't true. The exit is blocked. They are killing everyone. There's no way out. These are hallucinations of fear. In your life, this sounds like, the industry is dead. Nobody is hiring. It's impossible to get a loan. If you listen to the echo chamber, you will believe the doors are locked. You will stop trying. You will lay down and wait for the end. But often, the doors are unlocked. The industry isn't dead. It's just changing. People are hiring, just not the people who are complaining. I know a man who started a business in the middle of a massive recession. Everyone told him he was insane. Nobody has money, they said. The economy is crashing. He didn't listen. He looked at the data. He saw that while the average person had less money, there was still a specific sector that was growing. He ignored the stampede. He walked through the locked door. He made a fortune. While everyone else was mourning the death of the old world, he was building the new one. He could only do that because he was deaf to the herd. Leading the stampede. Here is the paradox. To lead the herd, you must first refuse to join it. When people are panicking, they are looking for something solid to grab onto. They are desperate for certainty. If you are running with them, you are useless. But if you are standing still, if you are calm, if you are speaking in a low, steady voice, you become a magnet. You become the eye of the storm. People will stop running and look at you. Why isn't he scared, they will think. He must know something we don't. Your clarity becomes contagious, just as their fear was. This is how you turn a stampede into a platoon. You grab one person, you look them in the eye, you give them a specific, simple task. John, stand here and hold this door. Now John is no longer panicking. He has a job. He has a purpose. He is grounded. Then you grab Sarah. Sarah, call this number and read me the figures. Now Sarah is grounded. One by one, you pull people out of the hysteria and put them back to work. You impose your order on their chaos. But you can only do this if you have escaped the stampede yourself first. You must put on your own oxygen mask before assisting others. The test of character. It is easy to be stoic when life is good. It is easy to be a free thinker when the stakes are low. The test comes when the pressure is on. The test comes when your bank account is bleeding and your friends are telling you to give up. The test comes when the news is terrifying and your neighbors are hoarding food. That is the moment of truth. Will you dissolve into the mass? Will you become just another screaming face in the crowd? Or will you plant your feet? Will you remember that the crowd is a mindless organism? Will you remember that the majority is usually wrong? Will you remember that fear is a liar? Thinking clearly while everyone else panics is not an intellectual act, it is an act of character. It is a refusal to surrender your dignity to the mob. It is looking at the stampede and saying, I am not cattle. I am a human being, and I will choose my own path. The exit strategy. So here is your strategy for the next crisis. Identify the herd. Look at what the majority is doing. Identify the emotional wave. Separate. Physically and digitally remove yourself from the noise. Invert. Ask, if the crowd is wrong, what is the opposite move? Stand. Accept the discomfort of being alone. Accept the judgment. Act. Execute your plan based on your signal, not their noise. The stampede is loud, it is powerful, it is terrifying, but it is also blind. You have eyes. Use them. Step out of the line, find the side exit, and walk calmly into the future that the crowd is too busy screaming to see. Chapter 7. The Mathematics of Fear. Fear is illiterate. It cannot read the data in front of you. But worse than that, fear is innumerate. It cannot do math. To the primitive part of your brain, the amygdala, every threat is equal. The probability of you saying something stupid in a meeting triggers the same chemical alarm as the probability of you dying in a plane crash. Your internal system treats a 1% risk and a 99% risk with the exact same level of hysterical intensity. This inability to distinguish between possible and probable is the root of almost all anxiety. You are walking around with a calculator that is broken. It multiplies every minor setback by infinity. It divides your competence by 0. It tells you that the cost of action is death and the cost of inaction is safety. This is a mathematical error. And like any error in a complex system, if you don't correct it, it will compound until it bankrupts you. This chapter is about fixing the calculator. We are going to strip the emotion out of your nightmares and replace it with cold, hard arithmetic. We are going to audit your fears. We are going to weigh the risks. We are going to prove mathematically that the safest thing you can do is often the thing you are most afraid of. Possibility versus probability. The first glitch we must fix is the confusion between what could happen and what will happen. Is it possible that if you ask for a raise, your boss will fly into a rage, fire you, blackball you from the industry, and you will end up homeless? Yes, it is theoretically possible within the laws of physics. Is it probable? The probability is likely less than 0.001%. Yet, when you think about asking for that raise, your body reacts as if the probability is 100%. You sweat, you shake, you avoid the conversation. You are investing 100% of your emotional energy into a 0.001% event. This is a terrible return on investment. If you managed your money the way you manage your worry, you would be destitute in a week. To think clearly, you must become a statistician of your own life. When a fear strikes, you must pause and ask, what is the historical failure rate of this action? Look at the data. How many times have you been fired for speaking up? 0. How many times have you actually gone bankrupt? 0. How many times has the plane crashed? 0. The baseline rate of catastrophe is incredibly low. The baseline rate of survival is 100%. You are undefeated against your worst days. Stop treating outliers like the average. The catastrophe audit. Most fear is vague. It is a gray cloud that whispers, something bad will happen. Math requires specificity. You cannot calculate a variable if you don't define it. You need to perform a catastrophe audit. This is a practice popularized by thinkers like Tim Ferriss, derived from Stoicism. It involves taking your vague fear and trapping it on a piece of paper. Take the thing you are afraid of doing, quitting the job, launching the product, having the difficult conversation. Now, write down the absolute worst-case scenario. Do not stop at, it will go bad. Be precise. If I quit, I won't find a client for 6 months. I will burn through my savings. I will have to sell the car. I will have to move back in with my parents. Everyone will laugh at me. Write it all down. Paint the picture of hell. Now look at that list. Rate each item on a scale of 1 to 10 for permanence. If you have to move back with your parents, is that permanent? No, it's a 3. You can move out again. If you sell the car, is that permanent? No, you can buy a clunker. You will discover that almost no disaster is permanent. Almost every catastrophe is actually just a temporary inconvenience. It is a solvable problem, not a fatality. By quantifying the damage, you realize that the worst case is usually survivable. And if the worst case is survivable, then the fear has no power. the then what algorithm. Anxiety thrives on the incomplete story. It freezes the frame at the moment of impact. What if I lose the client? Freeze frame, panic. To break the freeze, you must force the movie to keep playing. You use the then what algorithm. What if I lose the client? Then what? I lose 20% of my revenue. Then what? I can't afford the office anymore. Then what? I work from home and cut expenses. Then what? I have more time to prospect for new clients. Then what? I eventually replace the income. By asking then what 5 or 6 times, you walk mentally through the valley of the shadow of death and come out the other side. You realize that there is a floor. You realize that life continues after the disaster. You replace the question, what if, which implies helplessness, with the statement, if then, which implies agency. What if is the language of a victim. If then is the code of a programmer.
You are programming your response to the crisis before it happens. The cost of inaction. Here is the most dangerous mathematical error you make. You assume that the cost of doing nothing is zero. You look at a risky decision, say investing in a new skill, and you calculate the cost. It costs $5,000 and 200 hours. That is expensive. I might lose that money. So you decide to do nothing. You think you have saved $5,000. You are wrong. You must calculate the cost of inaction. If you stay in your current stagnant role for the next 10 years, what is the cost? Calculate the inflation eating your salary. Calculate the atrophy of your skills. Calculate the mental toll of boredom and resentment. Calculate the compounding interest on the opportunity you missed. The cost of doing nothing is often astronomically higher than the cost of trying and failing. If you try and fail, you lose time and money, but you gain data and experience. If you do nothing, you lose time, money via inflation and lost opportunity, and you gain nothing. You just slowly decay. Inaction is a slow leak in the hull of your ship. You don't notice it because it's not an explosion, but the math is undeniable. It will sink you just as surely as a torpedo. You must learn to fear standing still more than you fear moving forward. Asymmetric risk. The wealthy and the wise do not gamble, they engineer risk. They look for asymmetry. Symmetric risk is betting $100 to win $100, a coin flip. Negative asymmetric risk is betting $1,000 to win $10. This is what you do when you speed on the highway to save 2 minutes. You risk your life, infinite downside, to gain 120 seconds, negligible upside. That is bad math. Positive asymmetric risk is betting $100 to win $10,000. This is what we are looking for. When you are paralyzed by fear, ask yourself, what is the upside? What is the downside? If the downside is, I feel embarrassed for 10 minutes, and the upside is, I meet a business partner who changes my life, take the bet. Every single time. The math is 1 unit of risk for 1,000 units of reward. You only need to be right once on an asymmetric bet to cover 100 failures. Most people are terrified of the rejection, the 1 unit of cost, and blinded to the partnership, the 1,000 units of reward. You must become a hunter of asymmetry. You should be constantly scanning for situations where the potential loss is capped. You know exactly how much you can lose, and the potential gain is uncapped. The ceiling is infinite. The zeros in the denominator. Let's look at the equation of anxiety. Anxiety equals likelihood of threat times severity of threat, all over ability to cope. If you think your ability to cope is 0, then the anxiety becomes infinite. Anything divided by 0 is infinity. This is why you panic. You subconsciously believe that if the bad thing happens, you will have 0 resources to handle it. You think you will crumble. You think you will be helpless. This is a lie. Look at your history. You have faced illness. You have faced heartbreak. You have faced financial tight spots. Did you die? Did you crumble? No. You coped. You figured it out. You endured. You must change the denominator. You must acknowledge that your ability to cope is a positive integer.
It is high. You are resilient. You are adaptable.
When you realize that you can handle the worst-case scenario, the math changes. The anxiety quotient drops. Instead of, "I can't handle this," the equation becomes, "This will be painful, but I will process it." The law of large numbers. In probability theory, the law of large numbers states that the average of the results obtained from a large number of trials should be close to the expected value. In simple terms, one bad day is a data point. A lifetime is a data set. You cannot judge the trajectory of your life by a single failure. That is bad sampling. If you flip a coin once and it comes up tails, you don't scream, "It will always be tails." You flip it again. When you're in the middle of a crisis, you feel like the coin has landed on tails and it is glued there. You think your luck has changed forever. Zoom out. Look at the data set. You have had thousands of days. Most of them were okay. Some were great. Some were terrible. Regression to the mean is powerful. Extreme lows are almost always followed by a return to the average. The math says that this crisis is not the new normal. It is a statistical deviation. It will pass. The line will move back to the center. Trust the law of large numbers. Do not extrapolate a permanent doom from a temporary dip. The ROI of worry. Let's do a final calculation. What is the return on investment, ROI, of worry? Worry is an investment of time and energy. You are paying attention, the most expensive currency you have, to a negative fantasy. Does worrying about the stock market make the stock market go up? No. Does worrying about the weather change the forecast? No. Does worrying about your reputation fix the mistake? No. The ROI of worry is zero. Actually, it is negative because it drains the energy you need to solve the problem. Planning has a positive ROI. Preparation has a positive ROI. Action has a positive ROI. Worry is just burning money in the fireplace to heat the house. It's inefficient and stupid. When you catch yourself worrying, do the math. Am I solving for X, or am I just staring at the variable? If you aren't solving, stop paying. Withdraw your attention. Put it into a variable you can control. Conclusion: the ledger of life. Life is a numbers game. You are constantly making bets, calculating risks, and projecting outcomes. The problem is that you have been doing the math with your emotions, not your logic. You have been giving fear a weight it does not deserve. It is time to balance the ledger. Stop overvaluing the risks. Stop undervaluing your competence. Stop ignoring the cost of inaction. When the panic rises, grab the mental calculator, run the audit, define the worst case, calculate the probability, check the asymmetry. You will find that the monster is not a monster. It is just a miscalculation. And once you correct the error, the answer is usually simple. Move forward. Chapter 8. The Eye of the Storm. In the center of a hurricane, there is a cylinder of air roughly 20 to 40 miles wide where the winds die down to a gentle breeze. The sky is often clear. The sun shines. This is the eye. Surrounding this eye is the eye wall, a ring of towering thunderstorms where the most severe weather occurs. Chaos, destruction, and violence are spinning at 150 miles per hour just a few miles away. But in the center, there is peace. For the first 7 chapters of this book, we have focused on how to get you into the eye. We have focused on your brain, your biology, and your decisions. We have focused on saving you. But you do not live in a vacuum. You live in a community. You work in a team. You have a family. When the storm hits, you have a moral obligation to be more than just a survivor. You must become a stabilizer. When the people around you are spinning into the eye wall, when they are being torn apart by fear, uncertainty, and bad data, they will look for something stationary. They will look for someone who is not shaking. If you have done the work, that someone is you. This chapter is about leadership. Not the kind of leadership that comes from a title on a business card, but the kind that is forged in fire. It is about how to project your internal clarity outward to calm the people around you. It is about becoming the eye of the storm. The power vacuum. In a crisis, the established hierarchy often collapses. The CEO who is good at spreadsheets might freeze when the building is on fire. The loudmouth manager might dissolve into tears when the layoffs are announced. The head of the household might be paralyzed by the medical diagnosis. Crisis creates a power vacuum. Authority evaporates. In that moment, the leader is not the person with the highest rank. The leader is the person with the lowest heart rate. Humans are herd animals. When we are frightened, we instinctively scan the room for the alpha, not the strongest person, but the most composed person. We are looking for the signal that says, "I have this under control." If you can maintain your composure while everyone else is losing theirs, you automatically inherit the mantle of leadership. You do not need to ask for it. It is thrust upon you. This is a heavy responsibility. You are no longer just managing your own psychology, you are managing the collective psychology of the group. You are the emotional ground wire. The high-voltage panic of the group flows into you and is neutralized. The physics of presence. Leadership is physical. Before you say a word, your body is broadcasting a signal. If your shoulders are hunched, your eyes are darting, and your breathing is shallow, you are broadcasting, "I am terrified. You should be too." You trigger the mirror neurons in everyone around you. You amplify the fear. To be the I, you must master the physiology of command. It starts with the eyes. Panicked people blink rapidly and scan the environment constantly. The leader maintains a soft, steady gaze. They do not look at the chaos, they look through it. When you speak to someone, you lock eyes. You do not flinch. This tells their primitive brain, "I am not scanning for threats because I have already assessed them." Next, the voice. Panic lives in the upper register. It is high-pitched, fast, and breathless. Command lives in the lower register. It is slow, rhythmic, and has pauses. When the room gets loud, you must get quiet. This is counterintuitive. Your instinct is to shout over the noise. "Everyone listen to me." Do not do this. Shouting is just another form of noise. Drop your volume. Drop your pitch. Slow your cadence. There is a psychological phenomenon where people will stop talking to hear a whisper. By lowering your voice, you force them to lean in. You force them to focus. You signal that you are so confident in your authority that you do not need to scream to be heard. The absorb and redirect. When people come to you in a panic, they are usually looking for one of two things: validation or permission. They will dump their fear on you. "We're going to lose the account. The client is furious. What are we going to do?" The amateur leader rejects this energy. They say, "Calm down," or "Don't worry about it." Never tell a panicked person to calm down. It has never worked in the history of human communication. It only proves that you do not understand the severity of the problem. It isolates them. The expert leader absorbs the energy. You listen, you nod, you validate the event, not the catastrophe. "I hear you. The client is angry. That is a serious situation." You have absorbed the blow. Now you redirect it. You pivot immediately from emotion to action. The client is angry. That is the situation. Now here is what we are going to do. I need you to pull the file, and I need you to draft a timeline of events. Can you do that? You have taken their frantic energy and channeled it into a specific mechanical task. You have turned a worrier into a worker. The certainty of direction. In the fog of war, people do not expect you to be a prophet. They know you can't predict the future. They know you can't promise that everything will be fine. But they need you to provide certainty of direction. They need to know what the immediate next step is. Imagine a shipwreck. People are in the water. They are screaming. They don't need you to promise them they will reach land. That is too big a promise. They need you to say, "Swim to that raft." That is a manageable instruction. It gives them a goal. It gives them agency. In your business or family crisis, do not try to sell a vision of the next 5 years. Focus on the next 5 hours. We are going to secure the cash flow for this week. We are going to get a second opinion from the doctor. We are going to pack the emergency bag. Give clear, binary commands. Ambiguity is the enemy. Do not say, "We need to figure this out." Say, "John, you figure out X. Sarah, you figure out Y. Meet back here in 60 minutes." When you give people a job, you switch their brain from the amygdala, fear, to the prefrontal cortex, task execution. You are literally helping them think again. The lie of vulnerability. There is a modern trend in management that encourages vulnerable leadership. You are told to share your fears, to cry with your team, to show that you are human. In a crisis, this is dangerous advice. In peacetime, vulnerability builds connection. In wartime, vulnerability destroys confidence. If the pilot comes over the intercom and says, "Folks, there's a lot of turbulence, and honestly, I'm really scared right now. I've never seen it this bad," he is being vulnerable. He is also being incompetent. The passengers do not pay the pilot to be human. They pay him to be a pilot. When the stakes are high, you must compartmentalize. You can process your fear later with your therapist or your spouse or your mentor, but you do not process it in front of the people you are leading. To your team, you must be a wall. You must be the certainty they lack. You can admit that the situation is difficult. This is going to be a hard week, but you cannot admit that you are hopeless. I don't know if we can make it. There is a difference between honesty and transparency. Honesty is telling the truth. The engine is on fire. Transparency is telling them everything you feel. The engine is on fire and I'm terrified we are going to die. Be honest. Do not be transparent. The Eat Last Protocol. Simon Sinek famously popularized the military concept that leaders eat last. In the Marine Corps, when chow is served, the most junior privates eat first. The senior officers eat last. If there is no food left, the officers go hungry. This is not just etiquette, it is a biological signal of safety. When the tribe sees that the alpha is willing to sacrifice their own resources for the good of the group, trust skyrockets. They realize that you are not using them to save yourself. You are using yourself to save them. In a business crisis, this means you take the pay cut before you lay off the staff. In a family crisis, this means you take the night shift at the hospital so your spouse can sleep. In a social crisis, this means you take the blame so your team can save face. When people know that you have their back, they will follow you into the fire. If they suspect you are looking out for number one, they will trample you to get to the exit. De-escalating conflict. Panic makes people mean. When people are scared, they lash out. They look for scapegoats. Arguments erupt over trivial things. As the eye of the storm, your job is to be the coolant in the reactor. When someone attacks you or starts a fight in the middle of a crisis, you must refuse to engage. Do not defend your ego. Use the gray rock method. Be as boring and unreactive as a gray rock. If someone screams, "This is all your fault," you say calmly, "We can discuss fault later. Right now, we need to solve the problem. Let's focus on the solution." You do not take the bait. You do not counterattack. You treat their anger like a symptom of the disease, not a personal insult. By refusing to fight, you starve the conflict of oxygen. You show them that their emotional outbursts will not result in a reaction. Eventually, they will run out of energy and return to the task. The contagion of calm. We spoke about the contagion of fear, but calm is also contagious. It just moves slower. Fear is a flash fire. It ignites instantly. Calm is a slow-setting concrete. It takes time to harden. You have to hold the line. You have to be patient. You walk into the room. You sit down. You breathe. You speak slowly. At first, everyone is still spinning. They are still checking their phones. They are still vibrating. But if you hold your state,
If you refuse to speed up, eventually they will slow down to match you. They will sink to your rhythm. This is called entrainment. The stronger rhythm overrides the weaker rhythm. If your rhythm of calm is rooted in deep structural clarity, the architect's eye, the mathematics of fear, it will be stronger than their rhythm of panic, which is rooted in shallow chemical reaction. Reality always wins over hallucination eventually. You just have to hold the reality long enough for them to join you. The post-crisis bond. There is a profound reward for being the eye of the storm. When the storm passes, and it always passes, the people you led will never forget it. They will forget what you said. They will forget the specific decisions you made, but they will never forget how you made them feel. They will remember that when the world was falling apart, you stood firm. They will remember that you kept them safe. They will remember that you gave them a job when they were paralyzed. This creates a bond of loyalty that cannot be bought with money. This is how dynasties are built. This is how lifelong alliances are formed. Trauma bonds people, but leadership during trauma cements them. The lonely watch. I must warn you, being the eye is lonely. While you are reassuring everyone else, there is no one reassuring you. While you are holding the roof up, there is no one holding you up. You are absorbing the shock for everyone. This is why the previous chapters are so critical. You need your internal tools, your solitude, your detachment, your philosophy, because you cannot lean on the people you are leading. You must be self-sustaining. You must be able to generate your own light in the darkness. This is the price of the crown. This is the burden of the capable. Chapter 9. The Anti-Fragile Mindset. Stop trying to be resilient. Resilience is overrated. It is a defensive strategy. The definition of resilience is the ability to withstand a shock and return to your original shape. It is the ability to bounce back. But why would you want to bounce back? Why would you want to return to the exact same state you were in before the crisis hit? That version of you was the one that got blindsided. That version of you was the one that wasn't prepared. If you go through hell and come out exactly the same on the other side, you have wasted the suffering. You have paid the tuition but didn't learn the lesson. We are not here to survive the storm. We are here to use the storm. There is a category of things in this universe that do not just tolerate chaos, they require it. They feed on it. They get stronger, smarter, and more capable the more they are attacked. This is the anti-fragile mindset. The concept was coined by the scholar Nassim Nicholas Taleb, but the reality is as old as life itself. Think of a package you are sending in the mail. If it contains glass, you write fragile on the box. This means if you drop this, it breaks. If the package contains a block of steel, it is robust. You can drop it, kick it, and it stays a block of steel. It doesn't care. But what if there were a package that had anti-fragile written on it? That would mean, please kick this box, please drop it, because every time you hit it, the contents turn into something more valuable. Most people build fragile lives. They need perfect conditions to be happy.
If the economy dips, if the weather is bad, if someone is rude to them, they shatter. Some people build robust lives. They are tough. They can take a punch. They endure the misery, grit their teeth, and survive. But the masters build anti-fragile lives. When the economy crashes, they scoop up cheap assets and get rich. When they lose a job, they start a company that puts the old employer out of business. When they face trauma, they convert it into wisdom and power. Chaos is not their enemy, it is their fuel. This chapter is about how to stop fearing disorder and start consuming it. It is about how to structure your mind, your finances, and your spirit so that you are not just safe from the fire, you are the fire. The biology of growth.
You are already biologically anti-fragile. You just forgot. Look at your muscles. How do you build muscle? You go to the gym and you lift a weight that is too heavy for you. You stress the tissue. You literally tear the muscle fibers. You cause micro-trauma. The body does not say, "Oh no, I am hurt. I must return to normal." The body says, "The environment is demanding more strength. I must overcompensate." It repairs the fibers, but it makes them thicker. It makes them stronger. It anticipates that the stress will return, so it prepares to handle a heavier load next time. This is the law of supercompensation. The same is true for your bones. Astronauts in zero gravity lose bone density because there is no stress on their skeleton. Bones need the trauma of gravity and impact to stay hard. Comfort makes them brittle. The same is true for your immune system. If you live in a sterile bubble, you die. Your immune system needs to be exposed to bacteria and viruses to learn how to fight them. It needs the attack to update its software. Comfort is not neutral. Comfort is atrophy. If you have spent your life avoiding conflict, avoiding risk, and avoiding difficulty, you have not kept yourself safe. You have made yourself brittle. You have created a psychological skeleton that will snap the moment real gravity is applied. To become anti-fragile, you must stop viewing stress as a negative. Stress is information. It is the signal that tells the organism it needs to upgrade. Post-traumatic growth. We hear a lot about post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. This is real and it is debilitating. It is when the brain fails to process a shock and remains stuck in the injury. But there is an opposite phenomenon that is just as real, though rarely discussed in the news: post-traumatic growth. Psychologists have found that a significant percentage of people who endure profound tragedy, war, cancer, loss of a child, financial ruin, do not just recover. They report that their lives are better after the event than before. They report deeper relationships. They report a greater sense of purpose. They report a total loss of fear because they have already faced the worst. They have stripped away the trivialities of life and are operating on a higher plane of existence. They didn't bounce back, they bounced forward. The difference between PTSD and post-traumatic growth is largely one of narrative. The victim says, "This happened to me, I am damaged." The anti-fragile mind says, "This happened for me, I am being forged." You must choose your narrative. When the crisis hits, you have to look at the wreckage and ask, how can I use this? What does this allow me to do that I couldn't do before? Maybe the layoff forces you to start the business you were too scared to launch. Maybe the breakup forces you to address your own toxic patterns. Maybe the financial loss forces you to learn how money actually works. The event is the same. The outcome depends entirely on whether you are glass or muscle. The Hydra strategy. In Greek mythology, the Hydra is a serpent monster. If you cut off one of its heads, two grow back in its place. This is the ultimate symbol of anti-fragility. The attack itself multiplies the monster's power. How do you apply the Hydra strategy to your life? You create redundancy and optionality. Most people have a fragile structure. They have one job, one skill set, one source of identity. If they lose the job, they are dead. If that skill becomes obsolete, hello AI, they are dead. If that identity is challenged, they crumble. This is a single point of failure. The anti-fragile mind builds multiple heads. You do not rely on a single income stream. You build side hustles. You invest in assets. You learn disparate skills, coding and public speaking, accounting and psychology. If the market kills your job, you have 3 other ways to make money. The attack fails. If one industry collapses, you pivot to the other skill. The attack fails. You must diversify your identity. You are not just a lawyer. You are a lawyer, a father, a runner, a mentor, a scientist. If you get disbarred, you lose one head, but you have 4 others, you do not die. When you have options, you are dangerous. When you have no options, you are obedient. The goal is to structure your life so that no single event can take you to 0. Once you eliminate the risk of 0, you can play the game with aggression. You can take risks that others can't because you know that even if you lose a head, you will just grow 2 more. Microdosing chaos. You do not have to wait for a disaster to build this immunity. You can and should self-administer the vaccine. We call this microdosing chaos. If you wait for the world to challenge you, you will be unprepared. You must challenge yourself. You must voluntarily inject small doses of stress into your life to keep your edge sharp. This is why people do cold plunges. It's not just for the dopamine. It is a controlled shock. You are telling your body, I am voluntarily entering a hostile environment and I will regulate my panic. You are practicing the override. This is why people fast. You are simulating starvation to teach your body to become metabolically flexible. This is why you should have difficult conversations before they are necessary. Go negotiate the price of a coffee just to feel the awkwardness. Ask for a discount you know you won't get. Stand in a public place and sing a song. You are inoculating yourself against social rejection. You are inoculating yourself against physical discomfort. When you seek out friction, the friction loses its power to hurt you. The person who wakes up at 4 a.m. to run in the rain is building more than cardiovascular endurance. They are building a callus over their quit response. When the real storm comes, it won't feel like a tragedy. It will just feel like Tuesday.
The barbell strategy Nassim Taleb proposes is a financial strategy called the barbell, which applies perfectly to decision-making in a crisis. On a barbell, all the weight is at the 2 extremes. There is nothing in the middle. In life, the middle is the danger zone. The middle is moderate risk with moderate reward. The middle is being a middle manager. The middle is putting your money in a savings account that loses value to inflation. The middle is safe-ish, but it slowly bleeds you out. The anti-fragile strategy is to play at the extremes. On one side, you are hyper-conservative. You protect your downside. You keep cash reserves. You keep your health. You don't take risks that can wipe you out, like driving drunk or betting your life savings on crypto. You ensure survival. On the other side, you are hyper-aggressive. You take big, calculated risks with small amounts of time or money. You start the startup. You approach the high-value client. You write the book. These are bets with limited downside, you lose a little time, and infinite upside, you change your life. You avoid the moderate risks, the safe career that hates you, the mediocre relationship, the slow decline. Be extremely safe and extremely bold. Be a librarian and a rock star. Be a monk and a warrior. Avoid the lukewarm middle. The middle is where dreams go to die. Wind and fire. There is a metaphor you must burn into your mind. The wind extinguishes a candle and energizes a fire. If you are a candle, small, weak, exposed, the wind, chaos, blows you out. You want the air to be still. You are fragile. If you are a fire, strong, consuming, hungry, the wind feeds you. The more the wind blows, the bigger you get. You want the wind. You are anti-fragile. Most people spend their lives trying to build walls to block the wind. They try to control the world. They try to banish uncertainty. They want to be a candle in a glass box. This is a losing battle. The glass will break. The wind will come. Stop trying to block the wind. Start trying to become the fire. How do you become the fire? By changing your relationship with failure. The candle fears failure. Failure is the end. The fire eats failure. Failure is just another log. Every time you fail, you gain data. You learn what didn't work. You adjust your algorithm. You become smarter. The failure is consumed and converted into heat. When a competitor attacks you, use their energy. If they criticize you, use the attention to sell your product. If they copy you, use it as proof of your leadership to charge higher prices. Nothing is waste. Everything is fuel. The infinite game. Simon Sinek distinguishes between finite games and infinite games. A finite game has known players,
fixed rules and an agreed-upon ending. Baseball is a finite game. There is a winner and a loser, and then everyone goes home. Life is an infinite game. There are no fixed rules. The players change, and there is no winning. There is only staying in the game. Fragile people treat life like a finite game. They want to win this quarter. They want to win the argument. They're obsessed with the short-term scoreboard. When they lose a point, they think the game is over. They panic. Anti-fragile people play the infinite game. They don't care about winning the quarter. They care about surviving the decade. They don't care about being right. They care about learning. When you play the infinite game, a setback isn't a loss. It's just a plot twist. It's just a change in the season. You are playing for the long haul. You know that if you just keep showing up, if you just keep adapting, if you just keep growing your heads back, you will eventually outlast the people who are burning themselves out trying to win today. Survival of the fittest does not mean survival of the strongest. It means survival of the most adaptable. Love the fate. The Stoics had a phrase, amor fati, love your fate. Not just accept your fate, not just tolerate it, love it. This is the ultimate anti-fragile stance. When the disaster happens, you do not say, I wish this hadn't happened. You look it in the eye and say, this is exactly what I needed. I lost my job? Good, I was getting complacent. Now I have the fire to reinvent myself. I got sick? Good, now I value my body, and I will rebuild it stronger than before. They betrayed me? Good, now I know who my real friends are. This is aggressive gratitude. It is a refusal to be a victim. It is a psychological alchemy that turns the lead of suffering into the gold of opportunity. When you truly love your fate, you become invincible, because nothing can happen to you that you cannot use. You have removed the off switch on your spirit. The alchemy of chaos. So, here is your instruction. The next time the world shakes, do not hold your breath and hope it passes. Lean into it. Open your arms to the chaos. Smile at the uncertainty. Tell the universe, is that all you've got? Tell the universe, thank you for the data. Thank you for the resistance. Thank you for the fuel. You are not a teacup. You are not a flower. You are a hydra. You are a fire. You are an evolution machine. Let everyone else panic. Let everyone else try to glue their shattered pieces back together. You are going to use the pieces to build a fortress. Chapter 10. The Sovereign Mind. We have reached the end of the manual, but this is not the end of the work. In fact, the work is just beginning. We have dissected the biology of fear. We have learned to pause time. We have learned to think like an architect, to filter noise like a pilot, to cut like a surgeon, and to stand alone like a shepherd. We have learned to turn chaos into fuel. But all of these are just tools. A hammer is useless without a carpenter. A sword is useless without a warrior. The final step, the step that separates the dilettante from the master, is the integration of these tools into a permanent state of being. We call this state the sovereign mind. To be sovereign is to possess supreme power or authority. In the context of a nation, it means the country answers to no foreign ruler. It makes its own laws. It defends its own borders. It decides its own destiny. In the context of your life, sovereignty means that you are no longer a colony of the world around you. You are no longer occupied by the opinions of others. You are no longer a vassal state to your own emotions. Most people are not sovereign. They are occupied territories. Their minds are ruled by the news cycle. Their self-worth is ruled by their boss. Their happiness is ruled by the stock market. When the world catches a cold, they get pneumonia. They are puppets, and there are 1,000 strings attached to their limbs, pulled by fear, greed, and insecurity. The sovereign mind cuts the strings. This chapter is about total, radical ownership. It is about declaring independence from the chaos. It is about building a citadel inside yourself that cannot be breached, no matter what is burning outside the gates. The end of the victim. The first decree of the sovereign mind is the death of the victim. You can be a victim,
Or you can be a sovereign. You cannot be both. A victim defines their life by what happens to them. I am late because of the traffic. I am broke because of the economy. I am unhappy because of my spouse. As long as you blame something outside of yourself for your condition, you are handing your power to that thing. You are saying, the traffic is more powerful than me. The economy is the master of my fate. The sovereign accepts radical responsibility. This does not mean you are to blame for everything that happens. You did not cause the recession. You did not cause the pandemic. You did not cause the war. But you are responsible for your response. If the economy crashes, the victim waits for a bailout. The sovereign adapts the business model. If the relationship fails, the victim blames the partner. The sovereign examines their own selection process. When you accept responsibility for everything in your life, you feel a heavy weight, but that weight is the weight of the crown. If you are responsible for the mess, it means you are also capable of cleaning it up. If you got yourself into this, you can get yourself out. Blame is a drug. It gives you a temporary high of self-righteousness, but it leaves you weak. Responsibility is a discipline. It is painful in the moment, but it makes you strong. Declare today, everything in my life is mine. The failures, the successes, the fear, the courage. I own it all. The internal constitution. A sovereign nation has a constitution, a set of supreme laws that do not change based on the weather or the mood of the populace. You need an internal constitution. Most people make decisions based on feelings. I feel tired, so I will skip the gym. I feel scared, so I will not invest. I feel angry, so I will yell. This is anarchy. A government ruled by the mob of emotions is unstable. It will collapse. The sovereign mind is ruled by values, not feelings. You must define your code. What do you stand for? What are your non-negotiables? I am a person who tells the truth even when it costs me money. I am a person who shows up even when I am afraid. I am a person who protects my family even when I am exhausted. When you have a code, decision-making becomes easy. The fog clears. The sovereign does not ask, do I feel like doing this? The sovereign asks, what does the code demand? If the code says we hold the line, we hold the line. It doesn't matter if we are scared. It doesn't matter if it's hard. The law is the law. This consistency creates trust. When you follow your own code, you learn to trust yourself. You know that you are not a leaf blowing in the wind. You are a rock. And when you trust yourself, the need for validation from others disappears. The citadel of silence. We live in the noisiest era in human history. The world is constantly banging on the door of your mind, demanding entry. The sovereign mind has gates. And the gates are locked. You must treat your attention like the crown jewels. You do not leave them on the sidewalk for anyone to steal. You guard them. This means you must become comfortable with being uninformed about things that do not matter. You do not need to know what the celebrity did. You do not need to know the latest Twitter outrage. You do not need to watch the viral video. This creates a citadel of silence inside your head. When you are not consuming garbage, you have room for greatness. You have room to think. You have room to plan. The sovereign is often quiet. They listen more than they speak. They observe more than they react. They know that in the silence, the signal becomes clear. Make your mind a sanctuary, not a public square. Be selective about who and what you invite in. If it doesn't bring value, wisdom, or joy, it stays outside the wall. Emotional alchemy. Sovereignty is not the absence of emotion. It is the mastery of it. You will still feel fear. You will still feel anger. You will still feel grief. You are human, not a robot. But the sovereign does not let the emotions sit in the driver's seat. The sovereign treats emotion as a passenger. I see that you are afraid, the sovereign says to the fear. Thank you for the warning, but we are going to do this anyway. This is emotional alchemy. It is the ability to take a raw, heavy emotion and transmute it into action. Take anger. Anger is just energy. It is high-voltage fuel. The victim uses anger to destroy relationships or break things. The sovereign uses anger to build. I am angry that I am broke. Good. Use that anger. Let it fuel your late nights. Let it sharpen your focus. Let it drive you to outwork everyone in the room. Take fear. Fear is just heightened awareness. The victim uses fear to hide. The sovereign uses fear to prepare. I am afraid of the presentation. Good. Use that fear to rehearse 10 times instead of 2. Use it to check every slide. Let the fear make you excellent. You do not suppress the emotion, you channel it, you put it to work. You are the master, the emotion is the servant. The long-time horizon. Slaves live for today, sovereigns live for the generation. The chaotic mind is obsessed with the immediate. I need pleasure now. I need relief now. I need the money now. This short-term thinking makes you vulnerable. It makes you easy to manipulate. If you need something now, you will pay any price for it. The sovereign mind operates on a long time horizon. You are willing to endure pain today for power tomorrow. You are willing to sacrifice the easy buck now for the fortune in a decade. You are willing to be misunderstood for a year, to be respected for a lifetime. When you extend your timeline, the panic vanishes. If you look at the stock market on a one-day chart, it looks like a heart attack. If you look at it on a 50-year chart, it is a steady climb. If you look at your life through the lens of this one crisis, it looks like a disaster. If you look at it through the lens of your eulogy, it is just a chapter. The sovereign plays the long game, and because they play the long game, they don't get rattled by the short-term fluctuations. They know that compounding takes time. They know that the seeds they plant today will not be trees tomorrow. They have the patience of a gardener and the vision of an emperor. The circle of control. Epictetus, the great Stoic slave-turned-philosopher, gave us the ultimate tool for sovereignty, the dichotomy of control. There are things up to us and things not up to us. The sovereign draws a circle in the sand. Inside the circle, my thoughts, my actions, my words, my character, my decisions. Outside the circle, the weather, the economy, the past, the future, the opinions of others, the outcome of the game. The sovereign focuses 100% of their energy inside the circle. If you are screaming at the TV, you are outside the circle. If you are worrying about what your neighbor thinks, you are outside the circle. If you are regretting a mistake from 10 years ago, you are outside the circle. Every minute you spend outside the circle is a minute you are wasting. It is energy leakage. When the crisis hits, the sovereign instantly shrinks their world down to the circle. Can I control this? No. Then I accept it. Can I control this? Yes. Then I attack it. This ruthless efficiency makes you formidable. While everyone else is trying to control the storm, you are busy reinforcing the ship. While everyone else is arguing with reality, you are exploiting it. The unshakable baseline. When you practice these things, responsibility, the code, silence, alchemy, long-term thinking, control, something magical happens. Your baseline shifts. You become heavy. Not heavy with burden, but heavy with substance. You become grounded. People can feel it when they walk into the room with you. They feel a gravitational pull. They feel that you are not easily moved. You become the person who can sit in the middle of a riot and drink a cup of coffee. Not because you are oblivious, but because you know that panic serves no purpose. You become the person who can lose $1 million and sleep like a baby, because you know your worth is not in the bank account.
You become the person who can face death, your own or a loved one's, with dignity, because you have accepted the nature of existence. This is the sovereign state. It is a peace that passes understanding. It is not the peace of a garden, it is the peace of a mountain. The wind blows, the snow falls, the lightning strikes, but the mountain does not move. The daily coronation. How do you maintain this? You must crown yourself every morning. Sovereignty is not a diploma you hang on the wall. It is a daily practice. It is a muscle that must be trained. Every morning you wake up and the world tries to invade. The phone buzzes, the worries creep in, the fatigue begs you to stay in bed. You must win the first battle. You get up, you do not look at the phone, you breathe. You review your code. You decide who you are going to be today. You say, "Today I am the sovereign. I will not be a victim. I will not be a puppet. I will bring order to chaos. I will bring light to darkness." And then you go out and you do the work. Some days you will fail. Some days the world will breach the walls. Some days you will lose your temper or give in to fear or act like a victim. Do not beat yourself up. That is just more noise.
Simply acknowledge it. I lost the throne today, and then retake it. The throne is always there. It is waiting for you to sit in it. The legacy of sovereignty. Finally, understand that this is not just for you. A sovereign mind is a public utility. It is a resource for your family, your community, and your world. We are living in a time of great fragility. People are breaking. They are starving for leadership. They are starving for someone who can show them that it is possible to stand tall when the sky is falling. When you become sovereign, you become a lighthouse. You do not have to run around saving people. You just have to stand there and shine. Your example gives them permission to be strong. Your calm gives them permission to breathe. Your courage gives them permission to fight. By saving yourself, you save the world. The final word. We have walked a long road together in this book. We started in the fog of war. We learned to pause. We detached with the architect's eye. We silenced the noise. We made the surgical cut. We escaped the stampede. We did the math. We became the eye of the storm. We embraced the anti-fragile. And now you stand at the gates of your own mind. The key is in your hand. The door is open. The chaos will come. It always does. The panic will rise. It always does. The world will try to break you. It always tries. But you are ready now. You know the secret. You know that the chaos is not the master. You are. You know that the panic is not the signal. You are. You know that the world cannot break what it did not build. Think clearly. Stand firm. Rule your mind. The throne is yours. Take it.